This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. 9 people from Winnipeg have been charged in an alleged criminal drug network that spans 3 provinces. The bust pulled in millions in drugs, jewelry, guns, and vehicles. CBC's Zubina Ahmed reports.
Millions of dollars in cash, drugs, guns, Louis Vuitton suitcases, Rolex watches, and high-end jewelry. This is some of what was seized by the Winnipeg Police Service's Organised Crime Unit. Inspector Elton Hall says these came to the city by planes, trains, buses, and specially modified cars.
$1.7 million in Canadian currency, approximately 30 kilograms of cocaine. To date, 4 handguns were seized. 1 submachine gun with a suppressor was seized. A Rolls Royce valued at $450,000 was also seized. 12 vehicles that include 4 Mercedes-Benz, 2 BMWs, and 1 Lexus SUV was seized.
Hall says the investigation started in March of 2022 when more than $500,000 in cash was discovered at the Winnipeg airport. The investigation, known as Project Soft Landing, involved police from BC and Ontario too.
The Winnipeg Police Service Organized Crime Unit and the Winnipeg Police Service Crime Analysis Unit identified a high-level interprovincial drug trafficking network responsible for the importation of controlled substances into Winnipeg from the Greater Toronto Area.
Halton says the investigation further led to 22 search warrants carried out on March 6, 2024 across Canada. In Winnipeg, those included properties in downtown St. James and Sage Creek. Manitoba Justice Minister said the province provided $230,000 to support the investigation. Hall says organized crime has expanded in Canada over the last few years, and so has the nature of gangs here in Winnipeg.
Organized crime provides the drugs, the money, and the handguns, and results in the violence you see on the street right now. That's how organized crime makes their money.
Hall says the influx of gangs and drugs into Winnipeg has increased human and sex trafficking too. He wouldn't give details on that part of the investigation. But Janet Campbell from the Joyce Smith Foundation says human trafficking is prevalent.
We do see the use of drugs throughout, from luring and grooming to control and manipulation of victims of sex trafficking.
Winnipeg police say more charges could be coming. So far, 14 people, including 9 from Winnipeg, have been charged. Zubina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A drive-by shooting in northwest Winnipeg last Christmas Eve is believed to be connected to a rash of extortion incidents and 2 other shootings in the Edmonton area. Police in Edmonton say the crimes there appear to target South Asian home builders. Surveillance video captured December 24th appears to show the shooting in Winnipeg. Around 8:45 p.m., a black SUV is seen approaching a home in the Meadows West Maples area. 8 shots can be heard in the video before the SUV drives away. Edmonton police said the home was occupied by several family members. No one was injured, but one bullet narrowly missed a person inside and passed through a wall into an adjacent room. Edmonton Police Staff Sergeant Eric Stewart says the homeowner was extorted and threatened before the shooting.
I can't give too many details on. Obviously, we're trying to protect the complainants in some of these events, right? It's tough for sometimes to come forward and be a willing complainant in these investigations. So I can tell you, connected to a home builder in Edmonton.
Investigators allege a 19-year-old suspect who they believe has gone to India is responsible for the shooting, along with 2 others in Alberta's capital. Edmonton police say someone in India is directing local suspects to carry out crimes and benefiting from it. Winnipeg police would not comment on the case or say why they did not previously notify the public about the drive-by shooting. Lawyers for a Winnipeg man accused of killing 4 Indigenous women in 2022 say they plan to argue he's not criminally responsible. Jeremy Skibicki has pleaded not guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder. CBC's Caitlin Garoluk was in the court.
Jeremy Skibicki sat silently in court on Wednesday as his lawyers told a judge they plan to argue he shouldn't be held criminally responsible in the killings of 4 women because of mental illness. Skibicki has pleaded not guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder in the 2022 deaths of Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, Rebecca Contois, and an unidentified woman given the name Mushkade Bishikekwe-Iban, or Buffalo Woman. Defense lawyer Alyssa Muntz said, quote, "This isn't a case where we're looking at the evidence to determine whether or not Mr. Skibicki committed those offenses." The update came as Skibicki's lawyers pushed to get rid of the jury selected last week to hear his case, and instead have it decided by a judge. They're arguing extensive media coverage of the case has tainted the jury pool. The motion relies on a public opinion poll done for the defense earlier this year. It found nearly all respondents said they'd heard about the case, and a large number believe the accused is guilty. Prosecutors say the jurors who were picked all told the judge they could be impartial in the case, and just under half said they'd never heard about it to begin with. The judge will rule on that motion to toss the jury on Friday. Caitlin Gowerluck, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Fallout from the massive sewage spill earlier this year continues. 8 First Nations have filed a lawsuit against the city, province, and federal government. As CBC's Cameron McLean reports, they're seeking billions of dollars in damages.
A pipe carrying untreated sewage burst in February, spilling more than 200 million litres into the Red River, the second biggest sewage spill in Winnipeg's history. Today, 8 Manitoba First Nations filed a lawsuit saying the city has been dumping raw sewage into the river and Lake Winnipeg for decades. They're seeking $500 million each for breaches of their charter rights, as well as $100 million each in punitive damages, worth a total of $4.8 billion. Gordon Bluesky is the chief of Broken Head First Nation.
We've been living with and we've been watching the steady decline and the health of Lake Winnipeg, and we need to stop and we need to hold these governments to account and say, well, we need to start having action towards protecting her and protecting her for a future.
The First Nations accuse the City of Winnipeg, as well as the Manitoba and federal governments, of failing to maintain the wastewater management system, warn the plaintiffs about the spill, and remedy the pollutant discharges. The alleged pollution of the rivers and lake have caused physical, psychological, social, and cultural harms to their members. Tony Travers is the chief of Kinongeoshtagon First Nation.
We've fished in our community. It's a daily meal for a number of our membership. We're concerned what we're actually putting into our bodies now.
The city says it has received the statement of claim and is deciding next steps. It has previously committed to making billions of dollars in upgrades to its sewer systems and sewage treatment plants, but First Nations leaders say that work should have been done years ago. Heidi Cook is the chief of Mississippiwistic First Nation.
When the Department of Indian Affairs is telling me that the water coming out of my lagoon is cleaner than the water in Lake Winnipeg, that's a problem.
Environment Minister Tracy Schmidt wouldn't comment on the lawsuit, but said the province is committed to protecting Lake Winnipeg.
And we'll also soon be introducing legislation to strengthen the Environment Act to be able to better respond to these sort of situations.
A statement of defense has not been filed. No court date has been set. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The city of Winnipeg is being advised not to replace a bridge that was built before the First World War. Instead, the Public Works Department wants to extend its life. CBC's Bartley Kivas explains.
The Louise Bridge over the Red River. The piers below this bridge date back to an 1881 rail crossing, but the city of Winnipeg doesn't want to replace this bridge, at least not for another 25 years. Engineering manager Brad Nerink says there's no danger of a sudden closure, like the one that shuttered the Arlington Bridge last year.
It won't be the same as Arlington. This bridge is in a little bit better condition than that, but it does need work. Like it is closed on a regular basis every year to do repairs to the deck and to the sidewalks.
The Louise Bridge was built in 1910. That makes it 114 years old. It requires annual closures for repairs just to keep it open.
Not just to the deck and sidewalks. The piers below the bridge, the ones that date back to Victorian times, they need to be wrapped up. The structural steel needs work, and so do the bearings. A new report from Nerink says that work must be done before 2030, so the bridge can continue to serve in its current configuration until 2050. This would cost about $40 million. The city councilor responsible for public works says that makes sense.
To rehabilitate the bridge now for the next 25 years at the price that they're presenting, I think that's logical.
The rationale for putting off the bridge replacement involves planning for a dedicated bus corridor. The city isn't sure where it will go, but infrastructure critics are not overly enthused by the idea of kicking another bridge replacement down the road.
That is a failure of disciplined leadership by elected branches over more than 50 years, and now it's beginning to show its ugly head.
The long-term plan for the Louise Bridge is to make it wider, both to add more lanes for vehicles and to create dedicated space for buses. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew announced support today for a community struck by tragedy earlier this year. RCMP charged Ryan Manakisik with 5 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of his common-law partner, Amanda Clearwater, their 3 children, Bethany, Javen, and Isabella, as well as Clearwater's relative, Maya Grattan. Wab Kinew says the province will provide $20,000 towards a memorial. He says while the province is helping with the funding, the vision and design of the memorial will be up to the family and community. Nancy Clearwater is Amanda's mom.
Too many premiers, I could imagine, would come out here to do a visual for the victims and then attend their memorial services. That meant a lot to our family. And to know that there are people out there that do recognize that domestic violence is a disease out there that needs to be taken care of.
In Carmen, Kinew also announced provincial funding for Carmen Wellness Connections. He says the nonprofit organization supported people in Carmen through this tragedy as well as before.
Also became clear to me that Carmen Wellness Connections had been there for the long term. That this wasn't just a group that had stepped up overnight, but that this is a group, in fact, that has been helping people out in Carmen for years and in a really good way.
Kinew says the province will provide $300,000 to the organization over the next 3 years. More medical students will be wrapping up their residencies in Manitoba than ever before. The province has added 17 new training seats, and for the first time in years, every residency position has been matched to a graduating medical student. CBC's Ian Fraze has more.
We hear repeatedly that Manitoba doesn't have enough doctors, but today at the University of Manitoba's Medical School, the government celebrated some good news on that front. Every physician training seat in the province has been filled this year. All 173 residency positions were matched to a medical school graduate. That's an increase from last year when Manitoba only had 156 training seats available. Here's Dr. Peter Nickerson, Dean of the university's medical program.
I think the real important point to take home today is, despite the fact that we expanded, right, we were able to actually fill all of our spots. That is huge. When you think about, it's great to increase your spots, but if you can't fill them, then what have you really achieved? I think the achievement is that we expanded and filled.
He's hoping Manitoba will have the government funding to create even more seats next year. Nickerson says the demand hasn't been met yet. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Blue Bomber Hall of Famer Lyle Bauer has died. The family of the former Winnipeg player, president, and CEO made the announcement yesterday. Bauer was an offensive lineman with the Bombers from 1982 to 1991. He won 3 Grey Cups in 84, 88, and 90. Bauer became president and CEO of the team in 2000. He left the post in 2009 to go to Calgary to work with the Stampeders. Bauer created the Never Alone Cancer Foundation after his own battle with cancer in 2004. In a statement, his daughter Danny said throughout his life, he brought joy, comfort, and a drive to make change in the community. Lyle Bauer was 65. The curtain came crashing down last night on the Winnipeg Jets, and their season is over. The team lost 6-3 in Game 5 of their series against the Colorado Avalanche, and the Jets are feeling the sting.
It's definitely a disappointing result, I think. With the pieces we added, we felt we could play with any team in this league, and the goaltending we have. So, it's going to be a long summer, a disappointing one. This one's going to sting for a while.
But we need to take the lessons from what they did out there because, they were the better hockey team, and we need to find a way to get to that level.
The Jets became the first Canadian team knocked out of the playoffs after losing the final 4 games of the best-of-7 series. Many fans at the whiteout party downtown also felt the emotion of last night's loss. While disappointed, some are already looking ahead to next year.
I think they were outplayed games 2, 3, and 4, and I think they were also outcoached. So we saw Perfetti tonight, we saw Colin Miller tonight, they came to play, and it's really unfortunate we didn't see them earlier in the season.
They couldn't get pucks in deep, they couldn't score, man. The Avalanche is just a completely better team. Makar owns us, McKinnon owns us, and we'll get them next year. That's all.
Meanwhile, Toronto Maple Leafs fans ended the night in better spirits than the Jets fans. Their team bounced back from a dismal showing Saturday to win the 5th game of their series against the Boston Bruins.
Tavares digging in on his off wing to the net, shoveled it in front, scores! Matthew Knies has won it, and the Leafs will take it back to Game 6 in Toronto.
Fans who gathered in a square in Toronto were elated when Matthew Knies scored 2 minutes into overtime to secure a 2-1 win. Boston still leads the best-of-7 series, 3-2. Game 6 is tomorrow in Toronto. The Vancouver Canucks are still in the hunt, as well as the Edmonton Oilers, who play tonight. CBC weather specialist Riley Lachuk joins us now. Riley, it seems those April showers might be sticking around into May?
Yeah, sticking around into May, Emily, and hopefully those May showers also bring some May flowers.
Yes.
A little bit later in the month. But we do have snow to talk about, too.
What?
So we'll get right into it. I want to take you back to April because, what a month it was. We'll put it that way. Looking at our temperatures here at a glance, most of our temperatures actually above seasonal for what would be an April. So 20 days above seasonal, 10 of those days below seasonal, including the last several here where we have seen some of this unsettled weather moving in. If you wondered, warmest day this month happening just last week on the 25th, when we hit just over 24 degrees. In terms of precipitation, 42 millimeters of rain precipitation, I'll say, calculated at the airport in Winnipeg last month. Normally we'd get 30 millimeters, so yes, we were a little bit above seasonal when it comes to rain. Our wettest day was April 16th when we got just over 18 millimeters of rain. Few showers passing through the province through the early part of the day, but we have seen some clearing already. So a sunnier evening ahead for parts of southern Manitoba, including the city of Winnipeg. But I draw your attention to this area here, the Parkland region, the Duck and the Riding Mountains. We'll take a bit of a closer look at that because, yes, live radar indicating even some snow. So right now, Dauphin and Roblin both sitting at about 3-4 degrees, but you have to think in the Duck Mountains where we have some of the higher elevations, colder temperatures means, yes, some light snow, and that's what we can expect as we get through into the evening hours tonight. So as temperatures cool, places like Thompson, Flin Flon, even as far south as Swan River, potentially getting some light snow tonight. Rain starts to move into the Red River Valley first thing in the morning, continuing throughout the day tomorrow. Even as far west as Brandon, expecting some showers throughout the day tomorrow, and even some heavier pockets of rain through the Red River Valley. That continues into Friday, on and off rain, maybe some light snow higher in elevation first thing in the morning. Saturday, we see more showers, sort of tapering off as we get through the day. So not a total washout, but certainly we are looking at some wet weather over the next few days. In terms of our accumulation forecast here, 15 to about 25 millimeters. Could see some pockets of higher accumulation though in extreme southern Manitoba. In terms of snow, a lot of this, yes, will be melting on contact, but a couple of centimeters of wet snow or some light snow through parts of northern Manitoba over the next 48 hours or so. As daytime warming starts to take effect, we will start to see some of that melting though, of course. 13 degrees right now in Winnipeg, very light winds at 4 at the moment. We're looking at a low of 4 overnight tonight with clouds starting to build in once again before we start to see rain beginning through the morning hours tomorrow. Ending up at 12 tomorrow, but southeast winds gusting to 40, so we're looking at a bit of a breezy day on the way once again. A high of 11 on the way for Friday. And then, Emily, we were bouncing back up to 18s and 19s by the time we get to the later part of the weekend.
I guess May is always a bit of a wild card in Manitoba.
Really is.
Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
A woman from Seguin First Nation in eastern Manitoba has been selected for a big opportunity. She'll be one of 29 contestants taking part in the first ever Miss Indigenous Canada pageant. Ocean Brer is a model and a mother of 2 boys. She spoke earlier with Information Radio with Faith Fundal.
For a really long time, my people were not even allowed to be on TV. So representation is super important to be able to be proud of who I am, where I come from, and for all of my people, and to be that role model for our younger generations or current generations to like follow their dreams, to step into their light, and just be proud of who they are.
What does that feel like? Because you're not just a role model, you actually have also been modeling. When you reconcile all those things, what sorts of feelings come up for you?
I want to cry, sorry.
It's okay.
I guess it's a very deep sense of pride and for myself, and just knowing that like I really pushed myself. I went outside my comfort zone. You know, I've dismantled limiting beliefs that, you know, got in my way, that I thought I couldn't do these things. And I just feel happy, like content, but also very proud and humbled in a way, right? Because when you come from a place where you think that you can't do these things, or they just seem out of reach, and then you do them and you're like, wow. You know, even for my experience in New York Fashion Week, like it took me weeks after even like really letting it sink in. Like I went there and I did that.
Has it sunk in? Yeah.
It has. Yeah. It has now, because I'm more comfortable with saying it and saying it with confidence and saying it with pride, you know. And so, yeah, I mean, even with the pageant, that too, the acceptance of that, it took me a really long time to process. Like the very first day, I just couldn't comprehend it. I just kept saying, I can't believe it, I can't believe it, I can't believe it. Like, because there are so many applicants and there are so many amazing Indigenous women across Turtle Island. And to be graciously picked out of all of these women, it was like super humbling and just super shocking. I don't even know how to explain it other than that.
Hundreds of arrests at university and college campuses across the U.S. as protests continue over the Israel-Hamas war. Here in Canada, a judge has rejected a bid to remove a pro-Palestinian encampment at McGill University in Montreal. More on that after the break. The number of arrests made at university and college campuses across the U.S. is climbing as protests continue over the Israel-Hamas war. CBC's Paul Hunter is in New York, where police last night arrested about 300 people.
Yeah, I'm outside Hamilton Hall at Columbia University, and as well, there's the front gates to the university. This is precisely where last night police came in force to disperse the demonstrators. Today, the demonstrators returned, but just temporarily. Carrying placards that read "No cops on campus," fury this afternoon over yesterday's decision by Columbia University to request that police move in to clear protesters out, and as well the university's request that police now maintain a presence for the next 2 weeks to keep demonstrators away until after graduation ceremonies here in the middle of the month. This morning, New York Mayor Eric Adams also underlined that demonstrations at Columbia were fueled in part by those who came specifically to ratchet up the intensity.
At the request of Columbia University, at their request, we went in and conducted an operation to allow Columbia University to remove those who have turned the peaceful protest into a place where anti-Semitism and anti-Israel attitudes were pervasive.
At the White House today, this further explanation for what played out at Columbia.
We've been very clear on that. Americans have the right to peacefully protest. They have the right to peacefully protest as long as it's within the law and that it's peaceful. Forcibly taking over a building is not peaceful. It's just not.
But meanwhile,
the whole world is watching! The whole world is watching!
The demonstrations continue to spread and grow in volume and emotion. This is Wisconsin, where police also moved in on protesters overnight.
It is despicable that the university has allowed this to happen. And you can see that it's clearly a myth when people say that cops keep people safe. They clearly do not. They are in riot gear when there is no riot.
And there were similar scenes in Los Angeles and beyond. Indeed, there are now pro-Palestinian protests in nearly 24 U.S. states, involving some 25 college and university campuses. Each of them making clear their anger and their determination to stay at it, no matter what actions are taken against them. Paul Hunter, CBC News, New York.
Meanwhile, a Quebec Superior Court judge has rejected an injunction request for the removal of a pro-Palestinian encampment protest at McGill University. She says the students who filed it failed to show the protest causes irreparable harm. Students in the encampment are relieved but cautious.
We were expecting it to be rejected, so yeah, we're very, very happy.
If they do not listen to the injunction, I think that says a lot about them and their lack of respect for student voices.
The encampment protest in place since Saturday has been growing. Protesters have said they're determined to stay put until the university divests from companies with business interests in Israel. The university says some protesters are not affiliated with the school and it wants the encampment to come down immediately. Tens of thousands of Canadians say they're pushing back against high grocery prices. They've decided to stop shopping at stores owned by Loblaws. The boycott plan grew out of an online group. It starts today, just as the corporation reveals its latest quarterly earnings. CBC's Nisha Patel has more.
Frustrated by high food prices, Emily Johnson decided for the month of May she's boycotting stores owned by Loblaws.
They have the biggest market share out of all of the big five grocers, and they operate in areas in the country that are food deserts.
She's not alone. More than 60,000 people joined her Reddit group, trying to take on one of Canada's biggest grocers.
Ideally, we'd like to see Loblaws sign the Grocer Code of Conduct. We would like to see, commitments to affordable pricing, price caps on essential items.
The movement is encouraging fed-up shoppers to vote with their wallets and spend their dollars at independent retailers. Still, with 2,400 stores across the country under a variety of brands, it's not clear if there will be much impact on Loblaws' bottom line.
I think the anger is widespread, but I don't think a boycott will grow necessarily, simply because there aren't very many options, unfortunately, for consumers.
Many Canadians continue to blame big grocers for the crushing cost of food, though retailers have pushed back on those accusations.
No matter how many times you read it on Twitter, the idea that grocers are causing food inflation is not only false, it's impossible.
For many shoppers, though, the boycott has yet to catch on.
I like their PC points. I like collecting that, and that's one of our main grocery stores that I use.
I'm just not picky about what store, a particular store I go. Whatever the deals are, that's where I go.
I avoid Superstore and Shoppers as much as I can.
Loblaws says it's working hard to rebuild trust with its customers, and it does what it can to combat inflation at its stores. This boycott is kicking off just as the company is reporting earnings. Profits were up nearly 10% in its latest quarter. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
The Canadian Dental Care Plan begins covering seniors today. It's the first rollout of a massive public program for low and middle income Canadians who don't have private dental insurance. CBC's Marina von Stackelberg shows us how the program is getting underway and why seniors might have to wait to get the care they need.
So we'll take a look at your teeth here, okay?
Morten Broussard is getting his teeth checked for the first time in 5 years. The 79-year-old is one of the first in the country to access the new Canadian Dental Care Plan. The Ottawa senior says his gums bleed every morning.
And the dentist is expensive, so is why I wait till the problem was very bad.
Today, seniors 70 and older are covered under the National Insurance Program. People aged 65 and up can now apply online. In total, 1.7 million have signed up so far. Broussard's dentist says he expects to see more patients like him in the coming days.
They haven't seen a dentist 5, 10, even more years, simply because they haven't been able to afford it.
Hygienist Shannon Maitland brings her mobile clinic directly to patients. The national plan will help cover routine dental work like cleanings, fillings, x-rays, and dentures. Maitland says that's a massive upgrade from existing provincial public programs.
Some of the coverage that these clients do receive might be only emergency based, and that is when you're in pain and you have a large infection. Any pain?
Maitland is waiting a few weeks to book patients under the program to see how it goes for others.
Good morning.
So far, only about 1 in 5 oral health care providers have registered.
I was involved in this process very early on, and it looked really promising. And then at some point, it just took a turn and became complicated and onerous, and unnecessarily so.
The federal government says it has simplified the paperwork and will allow oral health care providers to directly bill to the plan without signing up. But that won't start until July.
We've got it down now to a process that's as simple and as basic as anything else out there, if not simpler.
Dr. Melvin Lee says so far things have gone smoothly in his clinic.
I do believe that dentistry should be a part of universal health care in Canada.
And that's why he hopes more dentists will also sign up. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
Everything that can be taken, and then you take a little more.
Well, you can love him or hate him, but either way, he doesn't care. Professional wrestling legend and Winnipegger Dom Callis stopped by CBC to talk about being a villain in the ring ahead of tonight's All Elite Wrestling Dynamite Rampage. That story and the forecast after the break. If you need to soften the blow after last night's Jets loss, maybe work out some of that frustration, you might want to head back to Canada Life Centre. That's where you can check out the All-Elite Wrestling Dynamite Rampage. One of the stars of tonight's show is Winnipeg wrestling legend Don Callis. He spoke with CBC's Faith Fundal and showed us how he plays the part of a heel.
Well, in wrestling parlance, a heel would be a quote-unquote bad guy, and I'm not a heel. I am myself. I don't play a character. I play myself. I don't, my character doesn't like people, doesn't like wrestling fans, and Don Callis, the person who grew up in River Heights, doesn't like people and doesn't like wrestling fans. I much prefer the company of a dog to any human being. Human beings are weak, and I have a hard time. As someone, I was cursed with a superior intellect growing up. I was admitted into Mensa at a very young age. I no longer participate in that. I was measured with an IQ of 165. That all sounds great. The problem is it's hard to have conversations with people when you've been cursed with that. My psychiatrist, when I was 14, diagnosed me as a high-functioning sociopath. I've had to live with that. People don't understand. I'm not a mean guy. I just don't understand regular human emotions.
So does it take then a lot of preparation, particularly when you're about to head into a fight?
Absolutely none.
So you just go into it as...
I go in and I say what I want to say, and I get, people say, well, you get the biggest reaction as a quote-unquote heel of anyone in wrestling and anyone in the history of AEW. What do you do? And this is going to sound like a very Zen Buddhist philosophy, which it is. I do nothing. I just go out there and be. Because other quote-unquote heels in this business, they get hated because of what they say and what they do. I get hate because I exist. And that's a very different level.
I don't know if I believe him that he's not playing a part. Riley Lachuk is back with the forecast, and it looks like the weather's not too bad for people getting home, maybe walking the dog.
Yeah, once we get into tomorrow, though, Emily, it's a bit of a different sort of story. Let's turn the page on that. Have a look at your dog walking forecast, because we're looking at some rain, as mentioned earlier. So I have 3 dogs to show you tonight: Cherokee, Chloe, and Chewy. Thank you, David, for sending your dogs in. You can send yours in to talkback@cbc.ca, where I would love to get them so I can show them on air. I've got lots to show, so keep them coming. So yes, we see some rain starting across southern Manitoba first thing in the morning, 8s and 9s. By the time we reach about 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, we'll start to see some of that shower activity starting here in the Red River Valley, and then we get into the full-on rain by the time we get into the afternoon. We'll time that out for you in just a moment here. Getting up to 13 degrees in Winnipeg, 14 in Portage, and still some warmth to be had in extreme southern Manitoba. 17, where we did see sunnier conditions through the afternoon in Morden and Winkler. On the flip side of that, single digits through the Westman region and into the northern part of the province. So here's where we are still at the moment: 4 in Swan River, 6 in Dauphin, and 13s and 14s through Brandon and Portage La Prairie. Looking at your forecast for tonight, yes, a little bit of clearing through southern Manitoba and central parts of the province, but that will be replaced by some clouds as we get into the overnight period and through the overnight hours. Good chance for some showers beginning through extreme southern Manitoba. So 6 overnight in Winkler, 5 in Killarney, and down to about the freezing mark or just below through the Parkland region. As I showed you, good chance we could see some light snow or some flurries through the region tonight. -2 in Pegwis with a chance of showers. Down to 1s and 0s through Flin Flon and the Pas. -1 in Thompson, a chance of some scattered flurries, and -4 overnight in Churchill. So looking at your forecast hour by hour tomorrow, starting with some snow through Flin Flon, the Pas, through Lynn Lake, Thompson, kind of working its way through. By the time we get to the later afternoon, though, we start to see that tapering off a bit. 5s and 6s tomorrow afternoon through Flin Flon and the Pas, as well as in Thompson, and still staying below the freezing mark through the Churchill region with a high of -1 tomorrow. Through southern Manitoba, by the time we start the morning tomorrow, already into the rain for areas like Morden, Winkler, Emerson, Killarney, even as far to the west as Melita. That moves further north as we get through the day tomorrow. 9s and 10s by the lunch hour for Portage, Winnipeg, and the Steinbach region, and that rain continues as we get into the afternoon hours. chance of showers or some scattered light rain through the Brandon-Verdon region. Highs of 9 and 10 tomorrow. 8s through the Riding Mountain and the Dauphin region. We're looking at a high of 12 in Winnipeg tomorrow, and an increasing chance of showers as we get through the day for Kenora, Dryden, and Fort Frances. I'll have your full 7-day forecast coming up.
Thank you, Riley.
Welcome.
A fine art gallery in Winnipeg is displaying paintings worth millions. They're all going to be auctioned off later this month, and a lot of those works are from the Winnipeg Art Gallery. We'll have that story after the break. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Art lovers might want to pop into the galleries at Mayberry Fine Art. Some masterworks are on display between now and Saturday. The paintings, with a combined estimated value of $10 million, will be auctioned off at the end of the month. That includes 14 pieces being sold from the permanent collection of the Winnipeg Art Gallery. I caught up with the director of the WAG yesterday to find out more. We're here at Mayberry Fine Art. I'm with Stephen Boris. He's the director and CEO of the Winnipeg Art Gallery. Hi, Stephen.
Hello, Emily.
So tell us, what painting are we looking at here?
This is a painting by William Kurlek, a Canadian artist who spent time in our province. And of course, the scene is a Manitoba harvest scene. It's painted in the early 70s.
And it's quite striking, that beautiful sky. Why is it up for sale?
Why is it up for sale? It's a good question. The WAG has 30,000 works in our collection, and William Kurlick happens to be one of the artists that we have incredible depth, a great collection. And we are raising some funds to build 2 endowments for contemporary art, for Indigenous art, with the goal to continue being able to support young Manitoba Canadian artists. So the funds raised from this sale go into endowments, and then with the endowment proceeds, every year we're able to purchase new works of art.
Has that been a challenge lately, finding the funds to support the artists that you mentioned?
It's always a challenge because we have very limited acquisition funds, and yet it's a critical part of our mission to support artists. So when you have such a rich, robust collection like we do, we felt comfortable letting go of a few works with the goal to acquire new works.
Where do the pieces come from? Like, were they donated to the WAG in the first place?
Some were donated years ago, some were purchased, some come from estates. Of course, we try to pick works that we know will be attractive, saleable, but works that also represent artists who have depth in our collection, where we're okay to lose one if we had to.
And what do you find, the most appealing about, like you mentioned, there's a set of 3 Canadian artists here. What would people be looking for when they see these pieces?
Well, Winnipeggers would right away recognize Winnipeg scenes, and these 2 paintings are both by Lionel Lemoyne Fitzgerald, who of course worked in Winnipeg. He later was a member of the Group of 7, but you're also seeing 2 different periods. The WAG has literally hundreds of works by Fitzgerald. So while it's always hard to let go of a few works, the fact that they're going to acquire other artists, young artists, the same way Fitzgerald was at one day, it's kind of exciting.
And give us an idea of some of the other pieces that are up for sale.
We have works by other Group of 7, by MacDonald, there's a David Milne, you might recognize the name Ivan Eyre, a Winnipeg artist, Tony Tascona, behind us, another Winnipeg artist, Bertram Brooker, George Reed. Kind of about 80 years are represented in these works on this wall.
What about the people who love these paintings? Is there a sadness to saying goodbye to them?
There is. In one way, we think we are opening up the vaults for other people, whether it's a museum or a gallery or private collection, to acquire something. We have incredible riches in these areas, but it's always difficult saying which one are we willing to let go. And so it's wonderful to have Maybury here showing these works so the public can see them.
And of course, you're going to acquire new things. What are you looking out for? You already have some things in mind that you want to purchase.
We have a long, long list. Of course, we're only using the revenue from an endowment every year, so that money will go long into our future. But there are many young, Canadian artists, Winnipeg artists, Manitoba artists that we'd love to be able to acquire their works. And this is one way that'll help us get there.
Is this kind of how art galleries work behind the scenes? Like you're kind of rotating among yourselves, different artworks?
Well, it's a good question. Museums and galleries regularly deaccession, that's what we call it. We don't sell to pay down a debt or the hydro bill. We sell only to use those funds for more acquisitions. Libraries deaccession all the time. They're getting rid of books so they can get more books. In the same way, this is a healthy kind of process where you kind of audit the collection every few years and think maybe we're going in another direction. Maybe there's areas that we do want to support, and particularly contemporary Canadian art, contemporary Indigenous art are 2 areas that are critical to our mission.
And you can preview those magnificent pieces at Maybury Fine Art in the Exchange District through Saturday. The auction happens May 30th in Toronto, but bids can also be made online or over the phone. Well, it's a great start to May across much of the province today. Riley will be back with a last check on the forecast after the break.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
I'm really concerned.
And I'm not really happy about that.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take. I'm Janet Stewart. From 12:30 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
It just brings everyone together.
Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you, weekdays on CBC.
Well, we're looking at a wet Thursday across much of southern Manitoba. Rain starting in the city of Winnipeg, really first thing in the morning. So by 8, 9 o'clock, we're already into the showers starting at least. 8 degrees first thing in the morning. We're getting up to 10 southeast winds to 40 by the time we reach noon, and then we're into the rain by the time we hit the afternoon hours. A high of 12 tomorrow, but we will see those gusty southeast winds as we head through the afternoon hours. 10 to 15 millimeters coming tomorrow, another 5 to 10 coming for the city of Winnipeg on Friday, lows of 4 and 6. And then we see some scattered showers through Saturday, clearing as we get through the later part of the day before we get back to temperatures around 20 or so for Sunday, Monday, and maybe some more showers on the way for Tuesday and Wednesday. One Saskatchewan family got a surprise of a lifetime. One of their cows gave birth to quadruplets.
And their birth is tonight's Daily Lift. Mark and Erin Van Haster Ranch near Bjorkdale, Saskatchewan. That's about 170 kilometers northwest of Swan River. They were checking their cows 2 weeks ago when she found one had just given birth to 2 calves. Not long after, they found she had given birth to another 2. Mark says the kids came up with names for the calves.
Because they had different colors rubbed on their backs, so we could keep them apart, tell them apart who was getting fed what. Orangela, I think, and Blue Ethany, and Grinelope, I think, or Grinell, I don't know. It's, the kids come up with names here, so.
The 4th calf is just named Nobody. The Western College of Veterinary Medicine says it's about a 1 in 700,000 chance to have 4 calves, and for all 4 to survive, the odds are 1 in 11.2 million. Wow.
They better buy a lottery ticket.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. What a lucky thing to happen.
Very cute,
Thanks.
too.
Yeah, adorable. Have a good night. Thanks for joining us.